Hello, Year 9. You'll be pleased to see what do you call it? So you've just got that picture of a lovely moon shining out over a lake. We are on the rhyme section of Shakespeare and Poetry booklet. So I guess that would be week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, week 6. But it's the rhyme section starting with regular rhyme. I'll read out the word and the example. You pause and write it down and send it to me. So number 1, regular rhyme. The poem has a regular rhyme scheme. Number 2, irregular rhyme. The poet uses an irregular rhyme scheme to highlight the chaos and unpredictability of battle. Number 3, crossed rhyme. It's hard to give you an example, but chartered street does flow, I meet marks of woe. So listen to that. See where the rhyme is. Chartered street does line 1, chartered street. Line 2 does flow. Line 3, I meet. Line 4, marks of woe. Hope that helps. Number 4, enclosed rhyme scheme. So line 1, east winds that knife us. Line 2, because the night is silent. Line 3, our memory of the salient. Line 4, but nothing happens. Enclosed rhyme. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, para rhyme. Here's the example. And by his smile I knew that sullen hall, by his dead smile I knew we stood in hell. Hall and hell. Number 6, slant rhyme. Here's the example. Near them on the sand, visage lies whose frown, sneer of cold command. Number 7, sight rhyme. Blood and mood, tomb and cone. Number 8, blank verse. We are prepared, build our houses squat, sink walls in rock and roof them with good slate. Number 9. Number 9, thorn line. But nothing happens. The final lines of all stanzas in exposure are thorn lines. Next, free rhyme. 3 days before Armistice Sunday, and poppies had already been placed on individual war graves before you left. And last on this week's, before we do the extra ones, internal rhyme. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. Okay, examples from previous weeks, please. Spellings from previous weeks. Fricatives that dazzled with rifle fire. Onomatopoeia, bang, pop, crackle. Simile, fishing boats strung out like bunting. Simile. Next, invincible. The witch's final meetings with Macbeth convinces him that he is invincible. Invincible. Next, tyrant. Towards the end of the play, Macbeth is known as a tyrant throughout Scotland. Tyrant. Next, betrayal. Betrayal. Macbeth's betrayal haunts him, but does not stop him. Next, invoke. Lady Macbeth invokes the spirits who tend on mortal thoughts. Invoke. Next, treason. Macbeth tries to cover up his act of treason, by pretending Duncan's guards were responsible for his murder. Treason. Next, treachery. Treachery. Macbeth's treachery is depicted through his murder of his king and then his best friend. Next, regicide. The Jacobean audience were familiar with the threat of regicide, as an attempt on James I's life had been made in 1605, the Gunpowder Plot. Regicide. Next, fealty. Macbeth's fealty to Duncan causes him to feel intense guilt at the prospect of murdering him. Fealty. Next, dramatic irony, as in when Lady Macbeth and Macbeth welcome Duncan to his castle, to their castle, and the audience knows that they plan to murder him. Next, going all the way back, disdain. Disdain. She looked at him. She was annoyed, so annoyed with him, she looked at him with disdain. Next, ubiquitous. Internet access seems to be ubiquitous. Loads of people are walking around the reservoir in my village, and dog poo is ubiquitous all over the pavement. It's disgusting. Next, fervent. Fervent. He was a fervent supporter of Leicester City and disappointed at their recent results. Fervent. Next, inexplicable. The disappearance of the key was inexplicable. Inexplicable. And finally, I think, yep, countenance. Her happy countenance shows that she had received good news. Countenance. And a quick test on this week's quotes, please. I asked you to learn 3. I'm just looking for them. I will read out the start of the quotes, the first few lines. You just need to write down the remainder of the quote, he says, while desperately trying to find them. Found them at last. So these 3 were about the witches. So I'll read them out. You just have to complete the rest of the quote and send it to me. Number 1, said by one of the witches. Said by Macbeth towards the witches. Say from whence. This is when he first meets them, and they predict he will become king. Number 2, said by Macbeth again when he first meets the witches. This supernatural soliciting. What comes after that, please? This supernatural soliciting. And number 3, said by the witches. Fair is foul. And complete the rest of that quote, please. That is it for this week. Well done, those of you who are keeping up the work. You are doing amazingly. Thank you, and have a good week.